All right. Hey, everybody. My name is Amy Williams, and I work for a company called Skellig. Now, Skellig is a systems integrator and digital consultant for the life science industry. Now, our mission is to use technology to transform this industry to make medicine more accessible. Now, before we dive in, I do need to give you a little bit of a disclaimer. This ProveIt session is going to be a little different than the others. And that's because Skellig was lucky enough this year to actually help with the ProveIt conference in that we made the data set for Enterprise C. So let me explain Enterprise C really quick. It's called Point 3 Therapeutics, or PTT for short. And for that facility, we created process data for single-use bioreactor, single-use mixer, TFF skid, and Chrome skid. And that process data is being streamed over MQTT into the UNS. But in addition to the MQTT data, we also created context in paper files. So we created some paper batch records, some PNID documents, some paper certificates of analysis, and some cell counter files. So the fun thing that we did is we actually engineered problems into that data set that reflect what we've actually seen in the real world. So you can kind of say, for PTT, we know where all the bodies are buried because we buried them. So for that reason, we didn't solve a specific PTT use case because we felt that would be unfair because we kind of engineered all the problems, so we already knew all the solutions. So instead, what we decided to do was to try and solve a problem that's bigger. That yes, it does apply to PTT, but it also applies to, I'd argue, the entire life science industry. And that is, companies keep buying technology instead of investing in their digital transformation. And listen, I understand the irony of saying that because right now I'm standing on the ProveIt Expo Hall where I'm surrounded by vendors who are showcasing how technology undoubtedly solves problems and adds value. But I'm telling you, technology alone isn't going to fix it. Because here's the thing. In the year 2026, I know for a fact some of you are still using paper batch records, or you're still using Excel files to share data around. Obviously, we all know that is not ideal. It's not ideal from a data standpoint. It's not ideal from a tech standpoint. And yet, over and over again, our industry is struggling to solve these problems. And I think the reason is it's not a tech problem. It's actually a people one. So during this ProveIt session, I'm going to attempt to solve two problems for PTT. I'm going to help them start their digital transformation, but that means addressing their technical problems and their human ones. So let's start first with the technical ones. When we talk about digital transformation, the first steps, of course, are always connect and collect. So that's what we're going to do for PTT. If we look at the UNS, we can see that technically they do have data publishing to the broker, but it's not very intuitive. Who knows what SIC 250.001 means? I sure don't. So we think the first step is actually to model their data to get it into a format that actually makes sense. And since we're talking about process equipment and they have silos of automation, we think that their first step should actually be to implement a SCADA system. So for our demo, we said, okay, we're going to use Ignition. Now, one thing that we did, because it is ProveIt, is, of course, we built an AI-enabled tool. So let me grab that for you. And basically, the way this tool works is we can input into it some PNIDs, and it'll output a boilerplate Ignition SCADA project. So I'm going to start that really quick for you. So we're just grabbing our P&ID documents and we're dragging and we're dropping and we click start. Now, I'll be honest, this is going to take a little while to run. So while it is running, I do want to explain a few things. First, let's take note of the P&ID documents given to us. One thing that we did is we made these flat files, which means if I try to come in here and Control F for any text, it won't come up. Like, I know 250's in here, but it's just a picture. And that's because I've been on plenty of projects where, for whatever reason, I was given flat files of P&IDs, and so when I needed to find TI-22, I was just manually scanning it, and it was a pain. So we thought, okay, we should have our tool account for those kind of funny situations. Now, the other thing that I want to do is while it's running, I want to show how we would approach SCADA, specifically Ignition, in a world of pre-agentic AI. So the first step would be to open the designer. The designer is basically the UI that allows a human to design in Ignition. So let me do that for you. So what's really cool about Ignition is anybody can download it for free. And the whole thing works on 2-hour time trials that you can reset indefinitely. So actually, our entire ProveIt demo was built on Ignition's free trial. All right, so we're going ahead and we're opening up the designer. Give a minute for it to log in. And this is the fun thing about live demos. I love awkward silence while we wait for things to load. But I guess the point that I'm illustrating is this is real time that it takes for people to do things the traditional way manually. What's cool about our tool is it doesn't even need the designer. It bypasses all of this and just creates the Ignition project for you. Let's see. All right, it loaded, so I'm going to log in. All right, open up our project. So when you're designing in Ignition, there's really I'd say 2 big parts to it. You have your tags and then you have your visualizations. The tags are basically all of your data, and the visualization is what it sounds like. That's how humans, how the operators actually get to see whatever you designed. So when this opens, if it ever opens, the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna make a UDT. Now, what I love about UDTs is right there at the edge, it lets you abstract away those really confusing PLC names and model them into a format that actually makes sense for you and everyone else in your business who isn't a PLC engineer. So we have this open, and I do want to be clear, we are starting with our base library, so our UDT definitions already exist. So what I'm going to do first is let's make an instance of a control valve. So the way you do that is you come over here, data type instance, go to ProveIt, and we grab our base definition, and then the little tag editor pops up. Now, we need to actually link this to some kind of data, right? So I'm just going to call this oxygen flow control valve. So right now, it's not linked to any actual data. What's really cool with Ignition is they have a module you can get, and it's called MQTT Engine. And basically what that does is it can connect to a broker, and it'll take your MQTT messages and automatically turn that into Ignition tags for you. So, assuming my free trial didn't expire, we're gonna come to MQTT Engine, I'm gonna expand this out, and we actually can see our ProveIt UNS in here, right? All the stuff here is the same stuff that we saw earlier in the broker. So let's say that I want to do flow control valve 250001. I'm going to right-click, copy path, come back over to default. And what we're going to do now is we can make something in Ignition called a reference tag, which basically points it to the MQTT engine tags. And that's how we can import our raw namespace from MQTT and then remodel it into our UDT. So I'm going to come into IO, my PV, my value. I'm going to turn it into type reference. Then I'm going to Control V. And I click apply. And then I also want to grab the set point, which I think was the same thing, but was set point in there. So we'll try that. Control V. Okay. All right, and if I expand this out, as you can see, we actually do have the real values here from our UNS are now here in our better UDT. Cool. So that's the first step is done. But SCADA, we need the visualization. So what's really common in Ignition is to use something called perspective. And basically, you can build a view that then you can visualize in a browser, which is really convenient because that is very mobile friendly. And honestly, it's very device friendly. Plenty of things like tablets can become your HMI. So to do that, we're going to come over to perspective, and we're going to come to views, and we're just going to make a new view. New view. All right, so in this, now we need to basically make our valve, right? As I said, we're starting with an example library. So what's really cool is we already have a bunch of components of like, this is what a valve looks like, this is what a pump looks like. So we're going to create something called an embedded view, which basically lets you instantiate one of your library objects so it can be reused over and over again. All right, so let's link this now to our valve. All right. Well, I don't know about you, but I think that looks hideous. It's red, and there are error messages everywhere. Why is that? Well, that's because our view is expecting to be linked to some kind of data source, right? It's trying to display the PV and the set point, but right now it's not linked. So that's why it's erroring. So we got to somehow pass in that data. So the way you do that is through something called params. So what we do in Ignition is we come up here, we click parameters, and we hit sync and reset. And now over here, this giant list, these are all the things we have to pass in for this view to look pretty. Now, I will not make us suffer and do all these together, but I will do one just to kind of get the idea across. So let's start with the name. In our UDT, we actually had something here called device core, and we had short name, where basically we give it some kind of friendly name, maybe kind of like the UNS style name. So let's do that for our valve. We'll change it to oxygen flow control valve. Oop. Hit apply, okay. Now I'm gonna pass that into my view. So I'm gonna come to my name parameter, backspace all that, Control V, okay. And at least, hey, we got our name up there, right? But obviously there's still a lot more work that a person would have to do to actually build this out. But for sake of argument, let's pretend we did all that. What's next? Well, what's really common on SCADA screens is the piping. And so Ignition created something called their pipe tool for that, and it's up here at the top. So you can just come up to the top and click this button, and now you can pretty much draw pipes just by pointing and clicking and dragging. So I'm gonna click and drag over here, and now I have, you know, a beautiful little pipe system. It can branch off in many different directions and all that, right? Now, pipe tool is great and all, but what happens when you're designing and then suddenly your boss comes to you and is like, oh, by the way, we need a navigation pane on the left. And I need the batch information banner at the bottom, and I want to have some alarm indicator icon that's going to eat up a bunch of your real estate. Okay, well now you have to rescale your whole screen, including all your pipes. Well, how do you do that with this pipe tool? Unfortunately, the pipe tool is not an SVG. So I cannot just like mass select all, now I'm adding more pipes, gosh, okay. I can't just mass select and like resize it. I have to kind of manually come in and re-drag this. So the pipe tool is great, but for a human, it can be a bit tedious at times, especially if you need to change things. All right, so to recap, I don't know how long that took. It's probably been about maybe 7 minutes. And so far, all I have accomplished is I made one UDT instance. I almost made a view. Well, I'll say we got 10% of the way there on instantiating my little valve, and I did draw a pipe, so that was great. But I don't know about you, I didn't find that work particularly captivating. Honestly, I found it downright boring. And more importantly, I found it error-prone. My strength as a human is not to be manually copying and pasting tag paths. But that is actually a fantastic use case for AI. So what I want to do now is pivot back. Oh my God, I have to move this, so let me come back over here. Oh, it's done. Wow. I am going too slow. Okay. All right, well, I love live demos. Okay, let's see if this worked. So let's see if this worked, and if it did, then I'll tell you how it did it, and if it didn't, I'll tell you what it should have done. Oh, our trial expired. That's good. I really love live demos. So like I said, I wasn't lying. We did build this whole thing without paying any money to Ignition, free trial. We love it. Let me log in really quick. But basically, what our AI tool did was we trained a vision system on PTT's PNID diagrams. And so then basically it was able to look at them and say, hey, you have a valve that's over here. You have a pump that's over here. You have some pipes that's over here. And then it was able to go into Ignition and actually instantiate all that for us. So if we click through, these were all completely AI-generated HMIs that it made for us of all of the equipment. And it's cool, like we have the faceplates that come up. This does do alarms and stuff. I think, yeah. So, let's see, sorry. All right, so let me expand this out too to show you what else it did. The other thing that it did too that's pretty cool is not only did it instantiate all of our views and things, it actually gave its best shot at kind of giving things a friendly name. So we have this little toggle here, and I'm going to switch it on. And so it pivots between the PNID name and the quote-unquote like UNS name. So now if I expand this out, it actually kind of built that section of our UNS for this equipment for us automatically. Now, do I think for a second that this is production grade and my gosh, the AI was so smart, you should use these names? Absolutely not. What I am saying is AI is really good at instantiation. And so that then frees up the time for your engineers to actually spend the proper time on design and figuring out what should our actual strategy and approach be. Now, I do want to point out one other thing. For ProveIt this year, there was this SESME profile requirement. And basically, in all of our UDT instances in device core, we have a tag here called profile definition. We'll see if I can click it. Oop. And in it is a URL that goes to a completely public Git repo. And it basically says, hey, this is the JSON of what your UDT is, or the structure of the data you're expecting to get. Now, one thing that I don't like about MQTT is the concept of I have to sit here and wait for things to be published to know what I'm going to get. Instead, in a UNS, it would be so much better if you could know in advance, okay, for this area of my namespace, I know I can expect this type of data. So to solve that problem, what we did was we added this profile tag. So let me come over to cell culture, sub. Yes, you can see this. So this topic here, it gets published with retain set to true, so it's always there. And it's basically a summary of what you can expect to show up in the area. So this is basically saying, hey, there's going to be 8 DO valves, 1 DI, 1 FIC, etc. And there's URLs to all of the JSON structures for it. All right. Now, I don't know about you, but I think this is cool technology. For PTT, we just showed we can drastically cut down on instantiation time for building a SCADA system. So that way humans can spend more time on actual design. However, let's say that Skellig wasn't honest that we had this tool, so we just bid like 15% less, won the project, delivered it to them, and we built this part of the UNS for them, right? Like, do you think that would have transformed PTT? Do you think they would have become a digital company? No, I don't think so. As I said earlier, PTT has a lot of problems. They have those paper batch records. They have these paper certificates of analysis they have to deal with. They have lab equipment and text files siloed in all these places. I don't think giving them just good SCADA is going to magically make them fix everything else. And that's because organizationally, they are siloed, much like how their data is. And the only way to actually fix that is by addressing the second problem I talked about in the beginning, which is the human one. So, as I mentioned earlier, Enterprise C kind of reflects a lot of the problems that we have seen in industry. And truly what they need is a cultural shift, a mind shift, and a better digital strategy. And the only way to do that is truly by talking to everybody in the company. And unfortunately, changing human behavior isn't glamorous. That's not something I can do for you in a 15-minute demo. The only way to fix human problems is by talking to humans. So that's why at Skellig, we believe the actual answer is to start with an assessment. Basically, you need to do a series of workshops with all layers, all levels of the organizations in your business. During those workshops, you need to be able to map your business processes, find all the pain points, and basically identify what are all of the problems holding you back. And maybe they're technical, but I bet you more likely than not, they're probably human and cultural. After that, then you need to make a plan on how you actually fix it. You have to be able to look at all of those problems and evaluate, okay, who's the low-hanging fruit? What can we solve quickly that actually gives us value? And then you basically iterate from there. You solve it and then repeat the process. You move quickly, you move with agility, and build momentum. And that's honestly how you actually do digital transformation. And from what I've seen, most companies, they skip this step. And listen, I get it. It's much more fun and much easier to go to your boss and say, hey, let's buy a new shiny piece of technology. So that is why, for the first time ever at ProveIt, Skellig is announcing a new offering. And we call it Phase 1. Let me pull it up for you, actually. All right. So basically, phase one is 4 weeks where we'll come in, we'll do that assessment. It has the 2 phases. First is we evaluate your business, and then the second phase is where we actually plan for what your first moves should be. It's 4 weeks, and it's $40K, and that's for 160 billable human hours. After that, then we move into agile development, because truth is, digital transformation, it's not a project, it's a journey. It could take, honestly, 1 to 2 years to actually transform your business. But I think it's kind of sketchy to go to a company and be like, hey, trust me, bro, hire me for 2 years and I'll change your world. That to me seems not great, like a good deal for the end user. That's why we say, only work with us for 2 months at a time. And if you like what we're doing, if we're clearly delivering value, then let's keep it going. And at any point, if for whatever reason things don't work out, you can stop. Now, let me tie this back to the AI tool we showed earlier. I'm sure people are probably wondering, okay, what's that cost? Well, here's the thing. That AI tool, we don't sell it for any amount of money, as in we will give it to you for free. It's $0 if you buy phase one. If you want that, if you come to Skellig and you're like, hey, I want you to do Ignition, we saw you have this cool tool, and you're not interested in phase one, okay, I don't care. Listen, somebody in Skellig will probably do SCADA for you, but they're not going to do it with that agentic AI tool. And I have 3 reasons for that. Number 1, agentic AI is very new, so I'm certain everybody has a SCADA budget for people to do things the manual way. So the idea is, if we're honest, like, hey, we have tools that can cut down on the painful instantiation time, we can then repurpose that part of our budget to do phase one of digital transformation. My second reason that I don't just want to give the AI tools out is AI, like I said, is very new, and some people, I think, get the wrong idea. I think, especially in what I would consider companies with less digital fluency, they might make the mistake of thinking, oh, AI, that can replace people. That's what we'll do. We'll just get rid of our automation engineers. And let me tell you, that will lead to nothing but disaster. AI is meant to enable your engineers. It is not meant to replace people. The third reason is, even if we gave you AI and you didn't fix the actual root causes in your business, all that would happen is you'll make bad decisions faster. So for example, even with Ignition, let's say I gave you a tool that let you make those UDT instances like that. If you don't have a good digital strategy, all that's gonna happen is you're gonna make bad UDT instances faster, UDTs that don't scale across your business or serve the needs of the other areas beyond your PLC engineer. And so for that reason, it is bundled exclusively with the phase one assessment. And I do want to make this part clear too. I don't think you even have to hire Skellig specifically to do this. I honestly don't care if you do. I know that for a fact there are plenty of brilliant engineers in the 4.0 community who could help you with this. But the reason that I wanted to make this a product is because, psychologically speaking, I know sites are much more likely to do something if they can go to their boss with a fixed cost. So that's why we're saying, hey, for $40K for 4 weeks, we can start you on your digital transformation journey, and then it's just 2 months at a time. And that wraps up my session. So thank you, everybody.